that sound, which means it's time for another week of high school football. Will Cooper, Art Mosley here on the North Georgia Sports Report podcast, here on a beautiful August the 26th. Art, how are you doing, my friend?
Coop, I've said it before. I'll say it again. If I was any better, I would have to be Twins. The weather, it's that false fall. I know you're over there in that great state of Texas right now, but we're in the middle of false fall, Coop. And I tell you what, it is so beautiful. I just feel like if we can just hang on for another few more days, Friday night is going to be fantastic, and I'm looking forward to it, man.
We're also in false fall here, or what is being tabbed as false fall. This is the first day that it will not be in the 90s since April, May. I
That's a
want to
beautiful
say
thing.
it is. As a matter of fact, I mentioned this the other day, but one of our low temperatures will be like 70 degrees even, which is obviously beautiful weather. We'd be happy about that in Georgia at home. The thing that people don't realize is I have not seen a temperature on my thermostat that starts with a 7 since May, because it
Wow.
just is. It's 82 degrees at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's always hot. So very glad that you guys are enjoying your false fall over there. I am doing the same and wrapped up in it, and it's such a great week. This is the kickoff of college football. NFL is going to kick off next week as well. Obviously, we're getting into the meat of the high school football schedule there in Georgia. Here in Texas, it actually kicks off this Friday. So we're getting fully into football season. So it's great that the temperature aligns with it as it should.
No doubt about it, Coop. You talking about the getting into the meat of the season. We've got 2 interviews again this week with a couple of county coaches. And as we're kind of thinking about this, Coop, for Class 5A, Region 6, this is their last tune-up before they jump into region play next week, which is hard to believe. 1/4 of the season will be over after Friday night, which, again, we just got started 2 weeks ago, and we're already to a point of it's time to put up or shut up. And so interesting to see what will happen. We've got a lot of football to talk about. All 6 teams in action last week, all 6 teams in action this week. You all know the drill by now. We will provide as much bulletin board material, River Ridge, as we need to for you all to be successful on Friday night. We love eating crow. Revenge is a dish best served cold, and we're here to eat all of it and talk about it. So, Coop, why don't we get started? First up, alphabetical order as always. We're going to go with the Cherokee Warriors, who had a rough go of it on Friday night.
Yeah, a historically rough go of it. If you want to find a time that they gave up that many points or lost by that much, you would have to go back to before a lot of these players were even thought about. That's 1996 on October 25th. Cherokee lost to Wheeler 63-0 was the last time that they got beat as bad as they did. You were there at the game. I was watching the game. It was tough sledding. I mean, we can't sugarcoat it past that. 39 total pass yards, 87 total rush yards. Did not sniff the end zone. Everything that could have gone wrong did. Injuries. We talked about, who would see at quarterback. We saw both Sawyer Ray and obviously we saw Zach Parker. It's just tough sledding right now for them. And you kind of feel like, when you saw them play against River Ridge, we were talking about, well, if you take out the special teams, this is a highly competitive football game that Cherokee probably would have won. And then you turn the coin over to this, and it's just such a dismantling of a team that you kind of left scratching your head about where do they go this week and what's the pathway moving forward. I do think hopefully they'll have this week to, obviously lick their wounds, but kind of like what we talked about with Woodstock losing to Etowah, you can only let them beat you once. Can't let them beat you twice. So they're going to have to turn around and be forward facing this week against Pope.
Yeah, nothing went right at all for the Warriors. One player that stood out for me in that ball game was Torrey Hearn. He came in on relief of Brandon Hamilton. I thought he looked pretty solid in the backfield, but just not able to get enough going all the time. So maybe you get a run of 3, 4, 5 yards, and then you lose a few yards, and then you just put yourself behind the 8 ball. And special teams were a bugaboo in week 1. They were a bugaboo this week. So we know that Coach Holly and his staff are going to get that fixed. We understand that's such an important phase of the football game, and even had their special teams gone off without a hitch, I think, as you mentioned, Sequoyah on both offense and defense, just a little too tough for Cherokee this week. And I think this might be a game where, if you're Coach Holly and if you're the Warriors, you just have to burn it. You lose your starting quarterback early in the ball game. That doesn't help matters. You bring in a freshman and, who probably doesn't have mastery of the entire playbook. So you're kind of a little bit handicapped. Zach Parker threw some pretty good balls, good looking balls. But I think at this point, it's like, okay, now we've got to get him settled in. We mentioned the injury to Sawyer Ray, not sure about his status. But you got to think that the Warriors are preparing both quarterbacks this week against Pope. So yeah, I think you kind of, and I hate to sound so, dismissive, but I almost as a coach, I'm thinking, we're just going to burn this one. And we've got to get closer. Like, this cannot be a moment of, everybody's talking bad about us. Wham, wham, wham. And if you've ever been in sports, you've ever played a sport, ever coached a sport, you've been on the wrong side of one of these ball games once in your life before. And if you haven't, then I don't know, maybe you're playing for Buford or Rome. I don't know. But, you've been on this side, and you have to, I think these kind of things can galvanize you, senior leadership. These guys have to come together and really take these young guys under their wing and say, hey, this is not how we're going out our senior season. And they just need to get back at it and compete. I think it just starts with competing for them again, getting back to their basics, competing in practice, this week, and then being ready, and especially as players, just being ready to take the coaching and get out there and get it done on Friday night. And I think that's the only way you bounce back. You can't go back and change what happened Friday night. You can certainly prepare to make sure that doesn't happen again. And I know that coaching staff is doing that. And I think, it's incumbent upon all of them, the coaches and the players, to make sure that, hey, we're protecting this and we're not doing that again. And I have full faith in Coach Holly that he'll do that, Coop.
Yeah, I do too. And I think a lot about when you go through something like that. You mentioned anybody that's been in sports. I always think about an interview Nick Saban did, after he retired, talking about how after a loss, you don't really have to coach as hard as you do after a win, because it's like a reality check. I think that coaching staff probably doesn't have to be yelling a ton at practice this week. I think it's a highly motivated, highly motivating group and a highly motivated thing that happened to them. So I feel like they have the opportunity to turn it around. The reality of it is that both of these games, do they matter? Yes, they're on your regular season schedule. But if you can right the ship in the next couple of weeks, then for region standings, nobody cares about it. It'll just look like a feather in the cap of Sequoyah to beat a playoff team if you're able to turn around for the region schedule. So they still have everything in front of them. This isn't some death sentence. A win's a win's, a loss a loss. It doesn't matter if you lose 61-0 or 3-0. It is what it is. So hopefully they can turn it around. They're going to play a Pope team this week that has struggled as well. They played Cambridge their first game 45-0, didn't put any points on the board, and then they beat Dunwoody 24-10. So both teams come in winless. I think for Cherokee, this is something that they've got to view it as, okay, we can burn those first two games, learn what we did from them, almost view them as scrimmages if you have to, in a way. But our season starts now, and here's an opponent that we can look at and we can start preparing for to get us on the right mindset.
Yeah, Coop, you talk about the Pope Greyhounds. This is a game that Cherokee won last year, 65-42. It was an absolute barn burner, back and forth all night long. John Stutzer set a state record, I believe, in receiving that week. The series is tied 10-10. Two teams that graduated most of their production. Pope is going to be starting a new quarterback, Hudson Marenko. It looks like he's kind of the leader in the clubhouse, or at least was last week against Dunwoody. They'll go with a freshman running back, Ivan Darden Jr. Coop, he looks pretty good, but Pope is a little small up front, and they've had a little bit of trouble running the football. They've had a little bit of trouble throwing the football. They are a team that's going to set up their passing game off their play action. And Marenko does have a strong arm. He's got a couple of receivers that can make some plays. So I think maybe a little bit of strength on strength when you look at a guy like Elijah Fute and Brooks Adams in the defensive secondary. But I think more importantly is, can guys like Trenton Barnett, can Kason Simmons, those linebackers, can those guys up front really get after the quarterback and stuff this running game? Because I guarantee you they're going to be trying to stretch Ivan Darden out, because once he gets out the perimeter, he's pretty fast. Cherokee has a running back just like him in Brandon Hamilton, and we talked about Torrey Hearn, who I thought looked pretty good, and you combine those two, they're going to need to get going for the Warriors to have some success. I think it's two teams that are going to try to establish the run. The X factor to me is going to be special teams. Has Cherokee buttoned up those special teams issues? And if they have, I think this is a Pope team that they can have some success against. If they haven't, and you give, I don't care whether it's Sequoyah or whether it's, the junior peewee team from down the street, you have to be sound in that third phase of the football game. And if Cherokee gives Pope too many chances inside the red zone off of, special teams mishaps, eventually they're going to make them pay. And I think that could make it for a long night. So if the special teams are buttoned up, I think Cherokee has a very good opportunity as they go on the road this week, Coop, to face the Greyhounds. So those are my thoughts. I think this is a nip and tuck ball game. I know this is probably a homer pick because this is a county team, but I think the athletes, just if I look at athlete to athlete, I like Cherokee by maybe one, maybe two. I think this is a tightly contested ball game. And I think if people look at records and say, oh, both of these teams are 0-2, don't be deceived by that. These are two teams that are going to be very competitive on Friday night.
Yeah, I agree with your pick. I like Cherokee by more of a full length. I'm going to give them 7 on the spread. Thankfully, the Cooper Predictor will be back next week, so I won't have to go off my own volition. But for this week, it is. And I'll tell you the reason I give them that advantage is because I agree with you. The Jimmies and Joes at a certain point are going to come out to perform. So Nation Farmer, a guy that, has some of these Power 4 offers, Simmons, who has done a great job. Right now, Chris Turner is a sophomore that's leading the team in tackles. He's shown really good flex. Elijah Fute, obviously track speed. We've seen him perform very well. You mentioned the running backs and Hearn, Hamilton. These guys are guys that I trust with the ball. And then, whichever quarterback, whether it's Sawyer Ray or Parker, I feel like both of them are capable of handling the ball efficiently. We just haven't seen it yet. But I feel like it's going to develop. That is coming. So hopefully it comes out this week, and I think it probably will. I think they have a few more pieces than Pope does, so I'll give the edge to Cherokee. And if you want to score, I'll give you let's go 24-17 Cherokee.
All right. Got it locked in. So both of us taking Cherokee this week. Coop will come back and talk about our power rankings, of course, at the end of the podcast. Right now, we're going to move on in alphabetical order to the Creekview Grizzlies. Coop, another team that was shut out on Friday night. Tough loss for the Grizzlies as they head over to Coal Mountain to face North Forsyth and really locked into a defensive battle. I think that the difference in this game, Coop, was explosive plays. What were your thoughts on this Creekview North Forsyth ball game?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think this is you kind of have the dichotomy of the two because it's interesting. We talk about Cherokee getting shut out, but that crooked number in a certain way makes it almost like forget about it. Whatever, like that was one game. Creekview, on the other hand, seeing a score of 10-0, it's like, man, you just had to do that little bit much more, and it almost bothers you more in a way. Now that's credit to Creekview's defense because, as we've known, Creekview is typically a defensive-led team, especially since Coach Williams has taken over there in 2019. But yeah, I mean, look, 88 pass yards, 82 rush yards. If you're not going to get to 200 yards on offense, you just put your defense in such a bad position. Again, North Forsyth was leading that game 3-0 at the half. It wasn't like it was, a quick explosive game. We knew it was going to be a grinded out type game, but thought maybe the run game would be a little bit more efficient. Now maybe that's a byproduct of the passing game. Like I talked about last week, when you become one dimensional in the run game, it's so easy to take advantage of that as a defense. And Creekview's got to find a way to get some production passing the ball. Absolutely have to. I mean, they're, what are they averaging? About 80 yards per game through the air. I mean, it's brutal. It's brutal. Now, again, a high completion percentage, but it's not productive. It's not that explosive play, right? Again, when you look at the three main biggest metrics that will tell you if you win a game: time of possession, turnover margin, explosive plays. So if you don't have the explosive plays, you automatically are cutting one of the main three out. So I agree in a lot of those senses. It's frustrating, and I'm sure it's just as frustrating for everybody on Owen's store that's trying to see that offense come to life. They have pieces. They've got a stable of running backs that we feel really good about from watching them. Again, Penrod and the Penrod brothers have done a great job of having that connection with the receiving core. They've got a lot of pieces. It's just finding a way to put it together and get some production, because they still have yet to get into the end zone this season.
Yeah, yet to get in the end zone, Coop. Tough night. You want to talk about quarterback. They end up going with the sophomore Landon Barnes, who does have a live arm. I think this is a young man with a lot of promise. I think, again, don't know the full story on Alex Penrod over there at quarterback, but I don't think he was able to go last week. Not sure if he'll be able to go this week, but Barnes going 8 for 17. On the season, he has a total of 97 yards passing, 10 to 20 for 97 yards on the season. He has shown some promise. Some of that, though, is they got to make sure he's got time to throw the ball. And also, how much of a grasp of the playbook does he have? We're talking about a young man who was a starter on the freshman quarterback team last year. So I think if I'm speaking to Grizzly Nation, I'm saying give this young man some grace while he grows up. And these are, again, I think this is a theme for Creekview, and this is not an excuse. This is just a fact. They've got a lot of players who have not played a lot of varsity football, and they're drinking through a fire hose right now, and they'll be better for it later on in the season. They just have to find a way to break through. This is a team, I think they just need one thing to go their way to really flip the script. They've got, like you mentioned, some pieces in place. We saw Derek Mizak catch a pass. We saw Robert Van Alstyne Jr. catch a pass on Friday night. We certainly know about Austin Penrod. We talked about Vines, Travis Vines and Carson Lott in the backfield, and kind of the dynamic they bring to this football team. And I think, like you mentioned, the defense speaks for itself. Holding North Forsyth to 10 points, I think that's impressive. That's a 7A football team that got a win last week over a 7A football team. So holding them to 10 points is not something to shake a stick at. I think the turnover bug bit Creekview a little bit. So they've got to overcome some of these miscues, almost similar to Cherokee. They've got to find a way to play, I don't want to say perfect football, but I will say excellent football. That's, taking care of the football, converting on third down, limiting the penalties and those things, the little things that become drive killers, they've got to be better at. And I think that's, they at least get in position to get, they got a great field goal kicker in Colt Davis. They've got to get him a chance, and he proved he can boot the ball in week 1. They've got to get him a chance to get in range. So at minimum, they can get some of these points out of these drives. And this is a team that, as we kind of flip the page of this week, they've got another brutal opponent, Coop, as Cambridge comes calling, and they're bringing their vaunted passing game mixed in with a continually improving rushing attack. What are your thoughts on the Grizzlies as they face Cambridge this week?
Yeah, Cambridge has played a fairly relatively easy schedule, at least according to the early rankings of the season, and beating Pope and Johns Creek, 45-0 and 56-0 respectively. With that being said, they've also pitched 2 shutouts and have scored quite consistently. They're averaging 50.5 points per game so far this year. I don't think they'll get that high of a number this Friday. I think that'll be a little bit more of a challenge for them. But it doesn't get any easier. You went and played Calhoun. Where does that line up? And that's a hard one to figure out.
Sure.
Look, it's tough. It's going to be a tough matchup for Creekview. Again, they're not far off. They're really not. It's just you leave your defense out in the sun when you can't hold the ball, when there's no time of possession, there's no yardage. There's you don't get the 2-minute kickoff break. So for me, I think Creekview's got to find a way to score a little somewhere, help your defense out. Cambridge has a ton of talent. I know you're going to go over some of those guys. That's more your wheelhouse than mine, but again, they've got pieces. We've talked about the pieces that they have. Putting it together is key. I want to give a shout out to Hudson Stanley. It was a guy that we had talked to Coach Williams about in the preseason show, leading the team in tackles right now. And on that note, Creekview's defense is performing quite well, but they don't have any sacks or interceptions on the year yet, which is very odd to say. So I think that there's even room for improvement defensively. Not that they need it against North Forsyth, but a team like Cambridge, they may. So it should be a good game. Hopefully for Creekview, it can stay a little bit closer than the Calhoun game did for them. And then hopefully the offense shows up and we can see them get their first touchdown of the season here in week 3.
Yeah, Coop, you're talking about a Creekview team that will be facing or hosting a Cambridge Bears team that is knocking on the door of the top 10 on a lot of polls around the state. Some people have them as a top 10 team in Class 4A. Very good team at mixing up the run and the pass. We know their head coach. We've seen him at River Ridge. Coach Tyler Jones was the former offensive coordinator at River Ridge, then went over to Walton to be their OC, and now in his second year as head coach at Cambridge. Had a fantastic season last year. It was a breakout season for Craig Dandridge, who earned himself an offer to the University of Georgia, which is no small feat. Another receiver we haven't seen this season, I don't know if he's battling injury, but Hudson Cochiera is another receiver last year that really lit up the Knights as a 1-2 punch. This year, it's been Dandridge again. Excuse me. He's just been fantastic. Quarterback Connor Langford in his first year as a starter, he's a senior. Coop, he's done nothing but go 11 of 12 for 249 yards. Really, most of that by only playing in the first half or the first 3 quarters of ball game. So he really hasn't we haven't really seen what he can do for a full game. Brooks Malone at running back, 225 yards, 5 touchdowns. They're very balanced. They're averaging 372 yards of offense a game, 206 through the air, 166 yards on the ground. So they're not a one-trick pony. Andrew Martin is another name at receiver that all eyes need to be on. So I say all this to say that the Creekview secondary will have to be at their best. Now, I do believe at least the Creekview secondary is kind of strength on strength, right? You have guys like Hayden Hanson, J.D. Russell, Austin Penrod back there in the secondary. You mentioned Hudson Stanley kind of playing kind of a safety position, flex position. Those guys will certainly have their hands full with these talented receivers, and we know that Coach Jones likes to air the ball out. My question is, when Cambridge does run, will they be able to stop Brooks Malone? And to your point, will they be able to either force a turnover or get some pressure on the quarterback? I think that's the one thing that we would like to see. That again, they lost a lot of talent along that front line, and who's going to be the guy to step up and really turn the table? We've seen a history of just guys that will get after it over the last 4, 5, 6 years for Creekview, and now it's time for the next iteration to show up. I have full faith they'll do it. I think this is a very difficult matchup. I will not be providing a point prediction this week, Coop, because I'll be the public address announcer at the ball game. So I'm going to let my opinions speak for themselves, and you guys can draw your own conclusions. But I think for Creekview, regardless of the score, I think most importantly, as they get ready for region plays, they need to find, as you mentioned, find a way to get in the end zone and get some positive momentum going into next week.
Yeah, I can give a score prediction, and I'm going to give Cambridge a 24-point win in this one.
Okay.
I think it's a little over, right at 3 possessions, but you know what I mean. Look, got to find the end zone. Got to find it. I think they will. I don't think this will be 0-24, or I don't think anything like that. I think it's probably going to be, maybe 38-14 sounds more right. So that's my prediction for now. Again, hopefully I'm wrong. We've been wrong already this year, so plenty of time to be wrong again, and I will gladly be wrong.
Fair enough. You and I both have been wrong before. It'll happen again. For your sake and Grizzly Nation's sake, it could be wrong again this week, so we'll see. Let's move on, Coop. The Etowah Eagles they found themselves in a ball game this past Friday night that maybe many people did not expect them to be in. Maybe this is a team that is better than one would have thought. They do end up falling to Sprayberry 42-24. The Jackets, if I'm not mistaken, scored 24, 28 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, probably in a span of 8 minutes to put Etowah away. But Coop, the Etowah Eagles proven that, hey, last week wasn't a fluke. Sprayberry is a top 10 ranked team. I know they're in 5A, but they're a top 10 ranked team. The best secondary that Etowah is probably going to see all season, and maybe one of the best quarterbacks that they'll see all season. What are your thoughts on Etowah in a loss this week?
Yeah, I don't appreciate how pointed you were with that, lead-in segment about
if you're feeling guilty, that's on you, not me. I mean, that's
guilty. I wouldn't say guilty necessarily. I just feel very attacked by my co-host today. I'm sorry that we had to send you to sensitivity training to learn how to say Brooks Darling and not Breton Darling, but that's not my fault. So you don't have to take it out on me here in the Etowah segment for whatever reason. But no, look, 100%. Etowah is better than I thought they were. You got me. They are. They're better than I thought they were. And credit to them. I mean, yeah, to your point, we're sitting there halftime, I'm shooting you and Dave texts like, this is an interesting score. Like what's
wow.
going on?
Yes.
Quick turnaround. We knew that Etowah was going to be highly motivated to go into that game. I think a lot of it, that fast start probably was a lot of emotion. You want to stand up for your guy and Coach Vavra, coming home back to Sprayberry. So I get it. Look, they're a much more complete team than I thought. Zeke Douglas is leading the team with 182 rush yards and 3 touchdowns. He's doing everything, a lot of the ball distribution. He's 156 pass yards, a touchdown, and an interception in that game, which throwing only 1 interception against that secondary is not bad. That was one of the things that we were worried about and kind of said, like, I can live with a pick or two. The thing to me that's impressive is that they've moved Walker Hughes out of the running back position, playing the receiver now directly. I believe he's up to 177 yards receiving on the year. The Douglas to Hughes connections becoming one of the best in Cherokee County that we've seen in a while. Very reminiscent of Spector to Hollier over the last couple of years that we saw at River Ridge for a comparison. I think they're a good football team. I think my only concern is that they don't run the ball effective necessarily super well with a designed turnaround handed to a running back. They're still trying to piece that together. So that's something that you would like to see because, and Douglas is a big guy, 6'2", 170, 180, but you just don't want him to take a ton of punishment as they get through the season. So I'd like to see them be able to alleviate his load a little bit. And then defensively, they're really getting a lot of production across the board. We talked about the fact that they beat Woodstock was because of those 2 interceptions, 1 return for a pick 6. Oliver Cray is leading the team in tackles. This was a guy we heard about 2 years ago, and then we never even thought about to mention in last preseason or this preseason. And then I see his name, and it's like, oh yeah, I remember him. Like I should have remembered that. 2023 knew that. And Cooper Hendricks also has 2 sacks on the year. So this is a defense that is getting production. Credit to them, and they're doing it in a big way. Sprayberry is a tough opponent. We're so tired of seeing them in Cherokee County. Region realignments being super forward thinking, but they come up and please GHSA do us all a favor. But that obviously, for Etowah, much better team than I thought. Yes, the final score ended up being a little bit lopsided, and it was a little difficult to see them, allow the 28 unanswered points that they did. But with that being said, they're leaps and bounds ahead of where I thought Etowah would be week 2 of this season. So I like where they're at, and I think there's a lot to like about Etowah. And again, Etowah is good. My bad.
Coop, as much guff as I give you, I don't think there's any reason for anyone to see Etowah's struggles last season and to think they would be this good this soon. So I want to give you a little pass on that. In all sincerity, this is a team that has come out and even shocked me, who was giving you a hard time about him last week. You talked about Zeke Douglas. You mentioned the 182 yards rushing to go along with 365 yards passing, 6 total TDs. You talked about Walker Hughes, and your point I think is well taken. I think as they try to figure out who's going to be that, I don't want to say every down back because I don't think this is a run first team, but who's going to be the back they can turn around and hand it off to, because you do want to protect your quarterback. But I want to go back to the defense, and you mentioned Oliver Cray. As I'm doing my research this week, that name popped up only because that's a name that you brought up a couple of years ago, and I was like, okay. And as you mentioned, it just, I was almost like, oh, this guy still plays for Etowah. As I'm kind of doing my homework, and not only does he play, he's up at the top leading the team in tackles, as you mentioned, along with Reggie Bruel and Kane Moss, who was a name that kind of the only name we knew that was going to that we thought as a starter last season was going to lead the team in production. He's right up there. And you talked about Cooper Hendricks with the 2 sacks to lead the defense. Etowah, I think what's most important is they're able to put the ball in the end zone. And we talked about just being able to score points, I think is an instant win for morale for this team. Being in a game, and you're right, I'm sure that was an emotional game for Coach Favre and the Eagles, to back-to-back emotional games, and now you come to play a Campbell Spartan team that you'll get at home. You'll be back at home, where there's not a ton of they've only met 5 times previously, Coop, so there's not a ton of history. This is not a rivalry game. I'm very curious to see how the Eagles handle, we saw the emotional win, we saw them go into another emotional game, and I know if we talked to Coach Vavra, he would just be like, hey, we're just trying to get a win. This has nothing to do with me. But you got to think his guys are playing for him. What are your thoughts on Etowah now? Again, back-to-back emotional games as Campbell comes calling, and Campbell undefeated coming into this ball game.
Yeah, Etowah is a really hard team for me to nail down right now. Because what do you do with all of that? Yes, they beat Woodstock. I will not undo what I said last week. I do think Etowah is better than I thought they were last week, but it doesn't change what I said, and I still feel that way. So the Etowah, the Woodstock game. Okay, yeah, nice win. And then they played Sprayberry more competitively. Campbell does come in undefeated, but their wins are 21-7 over Chapel Hill, 42-19 over South Forsyth. Not traditional powers. Maybe they'll be better this year than they have been in the last few years. I don't know, but it's very difficult for me to pick, just because Etowah has played a couple of not only playoff caliber teams, but they played a team that was in the semifinals last year. This was an Elite Eight team in Sprayberry they just played. Obviously, Campbell hasn't played that level of competition, and Etowah had the lead in that game. So, I think I'm going on a streak now, saying it 3 weeks in a row. But if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. If the game ended at half, it would be a great game for Etowah. So, to your point, what do I think about it? I think this is going to be, again, a very driven team led by guys like Zeke Douglas, looking for Walker Hughes, trying to develop the run game maybe a little bit more. The offensive line doing a pretty good job. Again, much better than I thought they would do coming into the year. And the defense is flying around, playing a really physical brand of ball. And they're getting after the quarterbacks. Again, Cooper Hendricks leading the team with 2 sacks. I think they've racked up 2 or 3 interceptions on the year through their first 2 games. Their turnover ability is very much showing right now for this Etowah defense. So if you want a prediction, I like Etowah in this one. I'm going to give Etowah a win by about 10 on this one, I would say.
Going
So that's
big.
what I've got.
So maybe I should have given you the Campbell Spartan breakdown before you jumped out and said Etowah by 10.
Uh-oh. Am I in trouble?
Right. I don't know. I don't know. This is a team that lost 2 starters, 2 all-region players that transferred. I won't tell you the name of the school they went to, but it's another Cobb County. It's another Cobb County school. The McEachern Indians. Okay, they were the beneficiary of 2 of Campbell's best players. And again, no, I don't know what goes into that decision to transfer. That's a player decision, a family decision. But the Spartans, despite losing these 2 players, have a new quarterback. This guy, Davin Lemire, last week he threw. I think it was about 237 yards, Coop. in 226. I'm sorry, 17 to 26, 226. That was in week one. He's got 2 touchdowns in the first game. Uh, Nick Buggs is a receiver. He's really exciting. He's got a lot of potential. He also caught 5 passes for 2. Caught both of those touchdowns last week. On the season, Buggs has caught 16 passes for 291 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then we mentioned their quarterback, Davin Lemire. Also want to talk about Ashton Gaucher, their running back, 5'9", 200 pounds. He's kind of a load to bring down. So this is not, I realize that Campbell has not beaten world beaters in their first 2 weeks, but this is not some cupcake. And I think this game's going to be a lot closer. It's going to be a matter of, can Etowah really contain the quarterback? If they can get Lemire on the ground, and he's a first year starter, he's kind of learning on the fly. If they can really force him into some poor throws by getting pressure on the quarterback and kind of contain him, he's going to be very similar to what they saw last week. Maybe I don't want to call him a poor man's Jaden Duckett, but very similar. So the good news is they've seen this kind of offensive attack before. Probably not the same caliber of receivers as Sprayberry. And can Etowah finish the drill? That's my question. We saw them last week not being able to finish the drill. The experience of Sprayberry ended up kind of being their bugaboo and just unable to contain, high level group of 4 type receivers and cornerbacks. And, there's a difference there in that skill level. So I think this game will be a lot closer. I do like Etowah, but I think it's a 1-point victory. I think it's very close. I think they get a slow start because of the emotional toll of the first 2 weeks, but I do think the Etowah Eagles find a way to contain Campbell and pick up their second win of the season.
Etowah by 9.
You're hedging your bet. I love it.
I'll drop it to 9. Look, so that's kind of what again, you go much more in depth with names, and I'm just here kind of looking, 1,000-foot view. I got, I focus on other things, which I appreciate. I think that's why, this works so well, because you're in depth.
Certainly.
But Graham Burmeister, Jaden Duckett, they're practiced this. They're used to this. I mean, it might be more of a challenge for them to play a stand-up quarterback, to be honest, at this point, because they're getting used to seeing these quarterbacks that are mobile. So, yeah, Etowah by 10, Etowah by 9, 9.5. There you go. There's your pick 'em line, 9.5.
All right, Coop, we're just beyond the halfway point. Our next team is River Ridge, and this is a team that I tell you what, we know that their student section has been named the Rowdy Ridge, but I tell you what, their overall fan section probably a little upset with our picks last week, as we both had Denmark 5-point favorites in that ball game. And what does River Ridge do? Come out and say, yeah, we don't care what Denmark and Sequoyah played to. We're holding Denmark to 7 points. We're scoring more than them. They're not going to run the football. We're going to kick their butt. And that's exactly what they did. 17-7 win for the River Ridge Knights on the road at Denmark, a 6A school who has only missed the state playoffs in 1 season. So, Coop, I mean, I'm eating crow right along with you, brother. What do you have to say about this one?
My bad, dog. My bad. Again, same thing I'll say to the Etowah folks. My bad. I'll take it on the chin. Don't have the Cooper predictor to save me from my bad decisions right now. So you're relying straight on me here. Look, I mean, River Ridge is the model of consistency at this point. It's kind of funny, when you get caught up in, 2018 Creekview and Sequoyah, 2019 Cherokee, 2020 River Ridge is obviously in there, but it's almost like people forget about it. Because then you get to 2021, 2022, 2023, and obviously, Sequoiah's taken front stage for the last 3+ years at this point, that we kind of forget that River Ridge is that model of consistency and winning these games that people don't think, you and I included, that maybe they were going to. So we should know better. Lesson learned. They did a great job. 222 pass yards, with a passing touchdown. They totaled 152 yards on the ground. 103 of that came from our friend Cam Cox, finally back in the rotation there. Micah Pugh also had a rushing touchdown there, so kind of distributing that ball in the backfield. Much more of a run first team, which we love to see. Love to see River Ridge being adaptable to what they have. I think that's such a key in high school football is that you don't get to recruit the players that fit your scheme, so you've got to get the scheme to fit the players that you got. Well, River Ridge looked around and said, all right, we got a first year starting quarterback. We don't have the receivers we had last year, but we got two really good running backs. So let's turn around and play joyless murder ball for a little bit. And that's what they've done to great success so far. Very, very impressive. Their defense to me is what's not being talked about enough. And I hope to remedy that throughout the season. They have 19 tackles for loss as a team, 19 through 2 games. That is an insane number. If you average that out, you get just shy of 100 before you get to the end of the regular season. Havoc plays incredible. The one thing is they don't have any sacks, which what do you do with that? I don't necessarily know. I think for their game plan, they tend to rely more on the linebackers in general instead of their front three, front four. So I think it does play into their hand a little bit to draw you into throwing those screen plays that end up going for a loss of 2 instead of sacking the quarterback or, rallying to the football, holding you for a -1 rush yard instead of, having that big play beat you open. So with all of that being said, River Ridge looks really good. They looked good against Denmark. This is very similar to what happened last year to you and I, where we got done watching Denmark get very close to Sequoyah, only winning the game by a field goal, and then turning around looking at River Ridge and going, if is Sequoyah 3 points better than River Ridge? Probably more than that. So we'll take Denmark again. We did the same thing last year and we ended up in the same spot. We've learned nothing. So here we are again. And yeah, to your point, you can't take 1 week and apply it to the next week. That's the oldest fallacy in football, regardless of level. And we did it, and we're sorry, and we'll probably do it again because we don't learn. But that's fine because you guys let us know, and we appreciate the engagement. So anybody that likes to rattle off with us, please do. We enjoy it.
Absolutely enjoy it, Coop. One thing I was impressed by, River Ridge getting Cam Cox back in this ball game. We saw week 1 it was Micah Pugh. This week it was Cam Cox. You mentioned Lockerman's big day throwing the football, a few turnovers on defense, sound in special teams as we've known Coach Collins' team to be, and they come away with a hard fought win. And they're 2-0. They moved to 2-0, and they've got a big matchup coming up this week as they'll be on the road to Allatoona. I probably don't need to remind Coach Collins and River Ridge this, but the last time they were at Allatoona, they were on the wrong end of a 31, I believe it was 31-0 football game. The only reason I know the score is we were there calling that one. Man, we certainly are hoping for better fortunes this week for the Knights. But before we talk about our thoughts on this football game, we have a special interview. Coach Collins has agreed to join us on the podcast despite us, picking against his ball club. And so, Coop, I think we ought to go to the phone and see if we can get Coach Collins in by video this week.
Thank you for joining us on the North Georgia Sports Report podcast. And joining us now is the head coach of the River Ridge Knights, Coach Michael Collins. Coach, thank you for being back with us.
Thanks for having me as always, Will. Always glad to be here and talking with you guys.
Absolutely, Coach. We always look forward to it as well. And, you guys are in one of the group of 2 county teams that remains unbeaten so far in the season. Nice win against Denmark, 17-7 last week. Tell us a little bit about that victory for you guys. It was good to see Camden Cox getting some carries, kind of getting the crew back together, getting things gelled. So tell us how the first 2 games and really last week went for you.
They've been 2 hard-fought battle games, very physical games. Denmark was a really good football team that made us play for 4 quarters. Like you said, it was good to get Cam back. Our offensive line did a phenomenal job opening up some holes for him, and we got some big plays on the outside. One out of Eli Bolden and another one out of Arden Redmond. And our defense just played lights out. Our secondary had, I think, three interceptions, so we were able to turn them over a little bit, and we were pretty solid on special teams for the most part, so we're very fortunate to come out of there with a victory.
Coach Collins, we first of all we both have to eat a little crow. We picked against you guys last week, so we owe you in 90. Yeah, I mean, you would think we would learn by now over the course of the last 5 or 6 years that we know better. But I just wanted to put that out there first. You mentioned special teams. We saw it in week one. Your defense and special teams again. What is the secret sauce? That is something that Will and I talk when we talk about River Ridge. We we get the sense that you all place a premium on that third phase of the game. What is it for you that makes that unit so special?
Well, we do we put some real big emphasis on it. Starts with my special teams coordinator Cecil Phillips. He's a phenomenal coach, and he's got a lot of experience under his belt, and he takes pride in it, and then it just kind of flows down from me to him and through our guys. It's a big deal if you're picked to be on the special team at River Ridge. The guys understand our culture. That is a big deal. We actually have draft picks, and we do a draft at the beginning of the year. And if you hear your name called on one of these special teams, you get a big round of applause, and the guys go crazy about it. So we take a lot of pride in it. We work really hard at it throughout the off season and during the season. So hopefully we can keep it going. We understand it. That is the third phase of the game, and it'll make or break you on any given Friday night. So we worked hard at it, and hopefully we can keep it going.
Yeah, and coach, kind of looking back a little bit, when we started the season, we felt like your program has become really the model for consistency, especially over the last few years since you kind of came into the program, which we appreciate as fans of the county. But on a more base level, your defense has really kind of solidified for me over the last couple of years. It seems like you guys have really done a good job of meshing that group, including only allowing 7 points to Denmark. Can you tell us a little bit about that group this season? Some growth that you've seen? Anything that's jumped out to you so far?
Well, we've got some experience in our linebacker spot. With Wyatt McCarty, he's a 4-year starter for us, and Brandon Burdett, a 3-year starter for us, and the other linebacker Miles has been off and on a 3-year starter. So I think that experience really helps. They play with a lot of confidence. They've seen a lot of football. And then we got a couple of newcomers. With Bryce McFarland is one guy that we've really been hoping to step up over the last couple of years, and he's stepped in and done an outstanding job for us. And Sam Vincent, another 3-year guy. So I think it starts with them, and then our D line. They do a phenomenal job of holding gaps and playing unselfish football. And again, I think we just try to make an emphasis on getting hats to the football. We're going to be undersized at River Ridge every year on our defense. Some of that's by design, and some of that's just by that's what we end up with. But we do try to be athletic on defense. We try to run to the ball. And Julian Todd, my defensive coordinator, man, he's a motor guy, and they kind of feed off of his personality. I think the guys love it. He gets after it every day at practice, and I think that's a big part of why we've been successful lately on defense.
Coach, before we talk about your opponent this week, I want to go back to something you told us in the preseason. And you said, hey, we got to get back to running the football. Week one, Micah Pugh has a big game. Last week, it's Cam Cox. What are there enough carries in a 60-minute high school or 48-minute high school football game for these guys to get enough touches? How do you distribute the wealth? And is it just a hot hand or what goes into those decisions?
No, there's not enough carries. There's not enough footballs, and it's really tough. And there's only one football to go around, and we have those two phenomenal backs. We're really blessed with those guys being in our program, and also Hunter Lockerman's a guy that we think can carry the ball very well. And there's Sam Vincent also spent some time in the backfield for us as well. It's a really good running back, and we got some guys on the flank that want the ball too. And so it's tough. So we just it is kind of keep a fresh back. We do have a blueprint that we try to go by. Certain plays, certain number of carries in a row, certain plays in a row. Then sometimes it's just the running back coaches get kind of a feel of how the game is going and what back seems to be, like you say, a hot hand. So it's a lot of different factors that go into how we distribute the football. We have a number that we want those guys to have at the end of a Friday night, and we usually get close to it, but a lot of it is just the feel of the game and how it's going. But there's never enough carries for those guys. And we tell them, hey, you got to do something with your touches. We're going to give you this many, so you better do something with it when you get that opportunity to. And so far they have, and hopefully they'll keep doing that.
And coach, to wrap it up here with you, it's taking on Allatoona this week. Come in 1-1 with a real close loss to South Paulding. One of those teams that's kind of been a thorn in the side of Cherokee County over the past few years. Obviously hard-nosed football team, but they've undergone some changes over the last couple of years.
Mhm.
What's the matchup look for you guys, and what's your key to victory coming up this Friday?
Yeah, we played for I think a home game last time we were down there, and we didn't fare very well, and I remember it very well. So it's a tough trip to take down there. They've got a big running back that they're going to bang inside, so they can hurt you with an inside run, and they've got a P4 athlete that they put on the outside that they're going to throw screens to, stretch you horizontally, and then he can also go vertical. So they're going to make us defend the whole field and play physical football at their place. Will be tough. Their defense is a multi-front defense. It's hard to find and figure out where they are a lot, what they're running coverage-wise. So it's going to be a tall task for us at Allatoona. But I think it's another really good trip for us to take before the tournament starts. So we look forward to it. We're going to have to establish a run game and stop their run game, avoid the big play, and hopefully cause some turnovers and try to get that crowd out of it, and we'll see what happens.
Well, certainly should be a fantastic atmosphere. As you mentioned, a very skilled team that you all are facing, but you're bringing a very skilled team over to Allatoona on Friday night. And so we're excited for your team's opportunity. This is your last tune-up before you get into that region tournament, as you so coined it a few years ago, Coach. So we wish you a lot of health, and we wish you the best of luck, and come out of there 3-0 as you get ready for a region play next week.
Thanks, Art. I appreciate it. Hey, we forgive you guys, man. By the way, I'm gonna speak for the Night Nation. I'll be honest. I did hear about it in the locker room after the game. I'm not gonna tell you what they wanted me to tell you. I'm just gonna say we forgive you, and if you choose to continue to motivate us, it'll be okay with me, brother. I'm still with you guys. So thank you for the opportunity to.
Well, if that's the case, then I'm picking Allatoona by 27, Coach. So
I hear you. I hear
Whatever
you,
it
brother.
takes.
Yes, sir. I hear you. I appreciate you guys. It's always fun. Always good talking ball with you. So hope to talk to you soon. Go Knights.
So again, thank you to Coach Collins for joining us. Always a pleasure to have Coach. I feel like when we get to talk to Coach Collins, we get a very personable interview, and likes to take some jabs at us when we are wrong, which again are bad. But no, we love it. It's great. We
hey,
really
we
enjoy
deserved
having
it.
Coach Collins on the show, and man, so happy. This is going to be so random, but so happy for River Ridge to have hired Coach Collins. Could not have hired a better coach, and for him to be locked in. Cherokee County guy through and through. He's from the area, loves the area, loves River Ridge, and he's turned that program into such a consistent force that it's been a true pleasure, and always appreciate having him on the show.
Absolutely, Coop. We definitely enjoy Coach Collins, and grateful for him to spend some time with us. He did. I did want to get a sense of him in that special teams, and it was very unique how, you know, they go about selecting their special teams and how they make it a big deal. And they just seem to play with a sense of pride that I don't know if we've seen from another football team. I won't even say a county team, but a lot of football teams, they just really take a sense of pride in that special teams. And we've seen this over and over and over and over and over again now for 5.5, 6 years from Coach Collins' football team. That's just a hallmark. You talked about their defense, they're undersized a little bit, but that's not an advantage or an excuse for River Ridge. And we've seen them be successful with those linebackers and guys like 4-year starters like McCarty and 3-year starters like Burdette. Man, that's a lot of experience to lean on. And before I steal any more your thunder, what a spoil of riches to have two running backs like Camden Cox and Micah Pugh. And what Coach Collins said, he's like, hey, look, there's not enough footballs back there for them. And man, I tell you what, I think it probably keeps both of them in laser focused on what they have to do, knowing that, hey, these might be my only carries of the game. And I'm sure that it's a healthy competition between the two, but what a great opportunity, especially for a guy like Hunter Lockerman, who's now finally starting to get rolling, to be able to turn around and hand the ball off. And as Coach Collins said, hey, this is a guy that can tote the rock too. So it's a tough football game. They got a tough matchup. I want to get your thoughts a little on what Coach Collins said, and then want to get your thoughts on Allatoona this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're kind of touching on a point there that I wanted to get into with Cox and Pugh and having some of those other rotational guys in the backfield. But this is a team that, barring any injury, which of course we hope, all of our teams stay 100% injury free. It's not the reality of football, but that's the way we want it to be. But in particular, you have such a luxury of knowing if you want to run the ball 30 times a game, 15-15. And that's a pretty standard amount that you're going to hand the ball off to a high school running back. So you can be super run heavy without having the wear and tear that you would normally have on your backs. So their offensive line's doing much better than I thought they would. That offensive line has been pieced together. Again, we kind of talked about this ad nauseum at this point, but when you lost guys like Jack Hall, John Feletra, Matt Ushak, and we kind of went down the line of these guys that had left, we're kind of left with a group of guys that were like, man, there's not a 6'6". Excuse me, we're not a 6'6" giant out here.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody that is that like Division One, Power Four prospect on this line, but they're also consistently good. They're just a complete unit. They're playing as a group of five right now. And I think that it speaks volumes to what, again, River Ridge's coaching staff has done. We will adapt to what you are. If you come here, you're an offensive lineman. Okay, this season we need you to pass block. We're going to work on pass blocking. They did a great job with that last year. This year, a couple of new rotational pieces put in. We're going to need you guys to block the run. So we're going to spend our time working on that. And they have done so very effectively. So I feel like River Ridge has the potential to be maybe the most consistent team out of all of the county teams, Sequoyah included, where we get to the end of the season, because if you have some of those pieces that you need to rotate a guy in, they have depth to do that, which is a big luxury that can't always be said and is usually pretty rare coming off a year like they had last year where they lost so much of that talent.
Yeah, Coop, great points there, man. Very great job of one, as you mentioned, getting buy-in from your players, and two, coaches realizing that, hey, this is who we have showing up, and Coach Collins spoke to that. Allatoona this week hosting the River Ridge Knights. Let me tell you a little bit about Allatoona before you go ahead.
Please
and
do before I say
make
anything.
your pick. Okay, all right. It starts and ends with a young man who we've seen before, and I think you're familiar with, Xavier Rucker. The last time we saw him, Coop, he was playing running back. They have moved him out to wide receiver. I know Coach Collins briefly mentioned him by description, not by name, but I have no problem saying his name. Rucker is a Georgia Tech commit. I assume he's going to be playing wide receiver or at somewhere on offense, whether running back or wide receiver. They've moved him out of the backfield and then brought back a punishing running back, Ethan Corpus, at 5'10", 190, and he's led the way for the Buccaneers. Corpus with 293 yards, rushing, 5 touchdowns. That's an average of 146.5 yards per game. It's a great weapon to have Ethan Corpus back there, because the Bucks have a first-year starter at quarterback, Fancy Frank Young. Okay, and I can give him this nickname because I know Frank Young. He spent some time in the Creekview football program. He's at Allatoona now, won the starting job. He's just kind of getting his feet wet under him in varsity competition, but be able to turn around and throw the ball or hand the ball off to Corpus, and then have an option like Rucker, who missed the first week, Coop. But last week, Xavier Rucker, 5 receptions, 113 yards, 1 touchdown, had a long of 80 yards, makes a very reliable wide receiver for the young quarterback, no pun intended, Frank Young. And again, Young in his own right, in 2 starts, Coop, he's thrown the ball for 260 yards. He's 17 to 29, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, completing about 58, just over 58% of his passes. So you've got a young quarterback. What better way to turn around and hand the ball off? And Young's got a live arm. He's a heady guy. He's he kind of reminds you a little bit of a mix of, I'm going to be old school here, Fran Tarkenton and Joe Namath. All right. Just kind of got a little moxie about him. If I'm River Ridge, I'm looking to get after him. I'm looking to get him to the ground and really rattle this young quarterback. And if I'm Allatoona, I'm looking to hand the ball off and test the interior of the River Ridge defensive front and kind of wear them down. And we'll see, this is a chess match. Certainly, Coach Collins and then in Allatoona, those guys are a lot smarter than me when it comes to football. But that's what I'm looking to do. If I'm Coach Collins, I'm saying, hey, we got to get some pressure on this quarterback. And then trust our athletes in space on defense against Rucker, and then trust our linebackers to bring that to stymie that running game. But I'd imagine play action will be in play with a running back like Corpus and a receiver like Rucker. So I'm interested to see how this works out. I think it's going to be a very competitive ball game. I'll go ahead and go first since you went first last time. I think River Ridge's defense is a strength. I think this is getting back to, I know it's not Coach Varner coaching these guys, but I think this is an Allatoona team that's getting back to that physicality that we've been so used to seeing over the course of many years that we've come to know and hate as Cherokee County fans. But tell you what, I think the Knights redeemed themselves from the last time they come over. And despite what I told Coach Collins in the interview, I'm not going to pick against River Ridge. I am going to pick the Knights. So you guys in that locker room, you guys in Night Nation, take it as you want. This is not a makeup call. I do believe that River Ridge wins this game by 3 points.
It is a very thin margin. I agree with that. To me, it's a sense of, do you trust Hunter Lockerman more than you trust Frank Young? Which one do you trust more, as they're both first-year starters? Obviously, Young is in a much different situation coming from the Creekview program, going to Allatoona. Lockerman's been in that program with River Ridge for a while. I think he understands the dynamics a little bit better. Again, he's taken care of the football, has done a great job with that. Camden Cox, Micah Pugh have something to say about all the praise that we're harping on, Allatoona for their running back and their skill players. I'm going to give it to River Ridge I'm going to go 7. And I think that it's because Allatoona will turn the ball over twice and River Ridge won't turn it over. That's the key to the game for me.
All right. Coop's got it locked in at 7. I think that's a little bit of a big number, but we will certainly see. Time will tell as Friday night inches ever closer. And you know what, Coop, if River Ridge wins this game by 10, 20, 30 points, I got a feeling Night Nation will become, they'll send a hitman out in Texas, and they'll be coming up to between Avery and Macedonia to try to find me. I tell you what, but in any event, those are our thoughts on River Ridge. We're going to skip over Sequoyah, as they're going to be, they are our North Georgia Sports Report game of the week. And so we're going to go to Woodstock, a team that was coming off of a emotional loss. We talked about it in the podcast last week. And I tell you what, for the first maybe quarter and a half, we thought, wow, this is very well true. Woodstock's off to a little bit of a sluggish start. Coop, your thoughts on the game last week?
Yeah, I went a little bit hot on the Woodstock prediction. My bad. Third time the show. But yeah, I don't think that it was a byproduct of their skill level or the players on the field. I think it was very emotionally based. I think if you look into the psychology of that, there's probably a lot to do with the fact that you lost, again, the rivalry game that makes almost the out of region schedule feel even more important to them. So I get it. Still won 33-7. For me, Burmeister looked like the Burmeister of old. He looked like a second-year starter. 215 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. He's also leading the team in rushing and passing. I believe he's got, and during the game, there was 184 rush yards as well. So they were very balanced, which is kind of what we got to know from Woodstock last year. Again, having to replace Isaiah Payton, they have a slew of guys that they feel comfortable rotating into that backfield. Big luxury. Rylan Hubbard is becoming a name to know, as he is leading the team in receiving yards. He's over 200 yards already on the season, so he's on pace for a 1,000-yard receiving year. I like what I saw out of Woodstock a lot. I feel like that they are doing what we kind of expected them to do. Hopefully that they got through that slow start so that now they can look ahead. They're going to have North Springs this week. North Springs is another team kind of like Woodland Cartersville that they played last week, in a team that has not fared super well over the last few years. Actually, Zach Gross and I went to the game at the Woodshed last year when they played North Springs, and they ran them out of the building. This game will obviously be in North Springs this week, but I still like where Woodstock's at. I feel like they recovered. I feel like they did what they needed to do. I feel like everybody can stop hitting the panic button, and maybe I can quit hitting the double down on Woodstock button so quickly, and we can get to a more normal level and realize where they're at. But I still think that they're a playoff caliber team. I think that there's nothing to be concerned about. I think that this is a very competitive team, and I think this week might be a little bit more lopsided than it was last week.
So noted. Just one small note, Coop. I was actually happened to be in Sandy Springs earlier this week, went by North Springs High School. They are doing some construction on their football stadium. So this game is actually going to be played at Woodstock. So Woodstock will get a home and home, back-to-back home games in this series. Great bounce back win. You mentioned it, maybe a little bit of a slow start against Woodland Cartersville. Definitely a team we thought Woodstock should handle by a few scores, and they certainly did. You mentioned Burmeister, 409 yards now on the season, 4 touches, 198 yards rushing. Xavier Murphy is a name that has emerged. I know we had talked a lot about Trace Washington, but Murphy now with 159 yards on the season. And Rylan Hubbard kind of, at least for us, out of nowhere, a junior with 212 yards. You mentioned it, on pace for a 2,000-yard season receiving. So certainly great things to look for from the Woodstock offense as they continue to improve and bounce back. They've got, again, this is their last tune-up before they jump into region play. Next week, they'll be playing River Ridge, a team we just spoke of. So we will keep our eyes on this game. Coop, I know I do a decent job of kind of scouting the opposition. Tell you what, it was tough to find any stats on North Springs.
Yeah.
The team that has not had a whole lot of success. We know that this is kind of I don't want to say a homecoming game for Coach Devine. He spent some time at North Springs, but and if I'm not mistaken, this was one of their most successful seasons under his leadership. But that wasn't a lifetime away. But North Springs last year, we saw them with a guy like, I think it was Jonathan Sannon, run first with a big back. This year, they're a little more spread out. They're going to run out of the gun. Bradley Jackson is a guy that plays offense and defense. He rushed for 308 yards a year ago and led the team, I believe, with 9 receptions as well. But, a lot of question marks we expect for Miles Jackson to be playing quarterback. But this is a North Springs team that's, they're struggling a little bit. We saw them, they were off, but got beat, I believe, by St. Pius in week 1, or excuse me, Holy Innocents in week 1. And I just don't think they have the talent to match up with Woodstock. And I know I've kind of jumped into my preview here. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think this is another big win for the Wolverines. I do not expect a slow start. I expect them to look more like midseason form. I expect Burmeister to have a big day in the air and on the ground. I mean, I think this could get ugly fast. I think Woodstock might win this game by 5 or 6 touchdowns, Coop.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. My number's about 35, I would say. And again, this is me tamping it down because I agree the potential score could be much more. Again, last year it was. And Woodstock called off the Dogs early, or the Wolverines early, to be team specific. Look at that. Wow. Everybody quit laughing. Yeah. But anyway, I like where Woodstock's at. I echo your sentiment. I'll put it at 35. I think Woodstock could easily clear that. I don't have any concerns for Woodstock. I agree that, hopefully they're not too forward looking, because River Ridge is on the horizon, and that's kind of developed into a little bit of a rivalry game. So hopefully they're not, so focused on getting to the region schedule that they overlook North Springs, but I don't think they will. I think 35 is a pretty conservative line, and I feel like I'm comfortable sitting there.
Fair enough. I think we're in lockstep, as some might say, in that ball game. Coop, we've done 5 reviews, 5 previews. It's time for our final one, our game of the week. It's a big one. The Sequoyah Chiefs, I've got them ranked number 9 in Class 5A against the Kell Longhorns, who I have ranked number 5 in 4A. A lot of talent on this football field. But before we talk about that football game, we got to go back and talk about the Chiefs' impressive performance at Tommy Baker, the field right over my shoulder in my background this week. Last home opener at the historic Tommy Baker. And again, we don't know if the school will carry that name over to the new high school, but man, a lot of festivities going over there at Tommy Baker. It was a beautiful night. The atmosphere was great. The fans from both schools were boisterous and loud and just exactly what you want to see in a high school football game. But man, I tell you what, after the kickoff, it was all Sequoyah, Coop. Your thoughts on this ball game?
Yeah, I think the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office has put out a warrant for some of the Sequoyah players and coaches for their abuse. I'm going to call it domestic abuse because we try to be friends here in county, and Sequoyah did not get the memo of that. So, of course, I'm joking, but yeah, look, I mean, it's 61-0. Almost there's sometimes in broadcasting as commentators that you can't really say anything that the numbers don't say. At 61-0 is your answer. 55-0 at the end of the third. I mean, it's brutal. Running clock the entire second half. This is the largest score for Sequoyah since 2002. On October 25th, they played Northview and beat them 62-7. So it's not the highest number they've ever scored, but boy, they got close. And it's since in this millennia, it's definitely been the biggest margin of victory for them. Very impressive from Sequoyah. So all that being said, anything that stood out to me in particular, Jack Ripley, a name that probably we didn't talk about enough. I feel like that's, kind of the problem with Sequoyah. And I'm going to ask Coach Teter about this because it feels like, we have some difficulty with our segments of fitting everybody in that we need to fit in that deserves the attention. I remember like last year going back and listening and it's like, we don't talk about Maddox Waller enough. I mean, that guy is blocking all the time. He's not putting up massive numbers in the receiving game, but he's open when he is. And, this guy needs to be shout out more. We went through that with Brooks, darling, a couple of years ago, kind of like, okay, they don't have any big receivers, Noah Gibbons kind of there, Paul Prisbillic. And then, oh yeah, there's Brooks Darling. We got to talk about him too. So it's kind of the same thing this year. It's like, you just kind of go through the motions of mentioning, the Colby Martins, Will Rejeckies, Brody Craigs, all of these guys, Alex Brewer, and we sometimes forget about that, I want to say, and that's our fault. In a way, we just have limited time. So that stood out to me. Asa Goings with the blocked punt. Mm-hmm. That was Coach Teter called it, right? And Coach Buddy did as well. They told us before they played the game last week that was a guy that they felt good about coming on strong, kind of understanding where the program was headed and understanding things. Well, there you go. So, what do you want me to say? I mean, that's all I got. I mean, we watched the same game. We both took it in. I mean, I don't know what else you can say. So that's my breakdown of it. I'm sorry it's not more in depth, but 61-0.
One thing I will mention, you talked about Jack Ripley, and I think there's a movie. Was it the Amazing Mr. Ripley or the Talented Mr. Ripley? And that's exactly what Jack Ripley looked like. I'm not a movie guy, so I'm sure maybe one of our fans will correct me on Twitter or whatnot. Opening kickoff, Ripley takes it back, makes a house call, but it was called back, and we thought, wow, that really stinks. Here's a guy who, like you mentioned, we hadn't mentioned much in the pregame at all, but really had a coming out party on Friday night, and just a couple of fantastic catches, both touchdowns that Colby Martin threw, and we do get stuck in a rut almost of the usual suspects, and part of it is because these guys have been playing a lot of football for a long time. It's a very experienced team, especially on that offensive side of the football. And, those names are just going to continue to come up. The Brewers, the Craigs, the Darlings, the Rejeckies, the Martins. And so I don't want to say almost refreshing, but it was refreshing to see a guy like Ripley to make some plays and say, oh, well, we got somebody new to talk about here. And I'll say this, when kind of talking to Coach Buddy last week, Coach Teter earlier in the season. They talked about Drew Williams. I think he's as advertised, Coop. Finally getting to see him, and we know he's a young man who picked up an offer from South Florida, and he again looks absolutely as advertised. 6'2", 195, just flies around the football field. Everything went right for Sequoyah. The only thing I would say, the only thing that stopped Sequoyah that night was themselves with a few penalties, and even then, it certainly wasn't enough to turn the tide there. As you mentioned, they big win. They move on to face Kell. Coop, do you want the breakdown on Kell, or do you want to tell me all about what's going to happen on Friday night?
Oh man, I'll tell you. Let's go to Coach Teter first. I think we got him
Let's do
calling
it.
in just a second.
Let's do it.
So let's go. Yeah, let's hear what he has to say, because I want to ask him about his point on Kell, because I'm done going first and not having any background information after the Etowah segment. So let's go to the interview with Coach Teter and see what he has to tell us. And thank you for joining us on the North Georgia Sports Report podcast. And joining us once again is the head coach of the Sequoyah Chiefs, Coach James Teter. Coach, thank you for being back with us.
Good to see you all again. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, Coach. Absolutely. Lots to talk about from last week's performance. Obviously, a lot of milestones for you personally. I feel like we kind of beaten that horse, so we'll just give you a quick congratulations on that in the record books there for leading Sequoyah and Cherokee County for all-time wins as a head coach. But 61-0 over Cherokee. The score kind of speaks for itself, but from your perspective on the sideline, what did you see from your guys and coming away with that impressive victory?
I thought our guys played really well. I thought we played a complete game, offense, defense, special teams, all three phases played really well. I guess you just kind of seen a group who listened for the week once we went through the Denmark game, and they kind of listened to us and paid attention to us and came out and just kind of handled their business the way they were supposed to.
Coach, when we spoke with you last week, you kind of adding on to what you just said about listening to their coaching and listening to and executing the game plan. Is it easier to motivate or get your team's attention after a close game like they had in week one, or now do you have to refocus them after a big win this week? Because the road doesn't get any easier as you've got a state ranked traditional power coming in to Skip Pope on Friday. In terms of motivation and focus, what, and from your experience, has been tougher to get your guys motivated, coming off of a close win or a big win and kind of keeping that momentum going?
For us, me at Sequoyah, I think it's been when you're facing an opponent that doesn't have a very good record or reputation for the past. With Kell, I mean, they're known to be a really good program. To kind of keep, that's to me is easier to keep them focused because our kids know what's at stake here and what's coming up. But I think us having played the game the way we did against Denmark, I think it was easy for us to get our kids' minds back on what they're supposed to do. I don't think we'll have trouble this week getting them to thought process to be correct just because we beat Cherokee the score we did because of Kell coming up. I think if it was an opponent that was coming after that game who had been struggling for quite a while, then we may have a little bit of problem. But right now we've had a great day of practice yesterday, a great day today. So everything's been really good right now.
Coach, when we cover Sequoyah, especially the past couple of years, it's one of the most challenging and enjoyable as a broadcaster because you can't really just think of 3 or 4 names. You got to know 10, 20 guys, and that was showcased on Friday when I don't think anybody would have expected Jack Ripley to come out and have the game that he did, including that fantastic catch in the corner of the end zone off the defensive back's hands. But tell us about, with you and Coach Jack Mine kind of putting that offensive game plan together when you have guys like Rajecki, Maddox Waller, Darling, and then obviously Jack Ripley and Colby Martin distributing it. How do you kind of decide that workload? Is it something that you pick out, or does the game dictate that for you?
Probably more so the game dictates that, kind of what they're trying to take away from us. So we'll sit down in our Sunday meetings to try to decide here's what we think they'll take away, or at least attempt to take away. And if they do, then we got the other options. It's a lot of stuff that we talked about over the summer when we went to camp to, even with Will, if somebody kind of chooses to take over the game and stop him from running, then, Colby's going to have to come through with the things he does. So again, the game itself dictates all that for us. We go in with a plan of We'd like to have this many touches if it's possible, but again, the defense dictates what's going to happen.
Coach, we typically, and you mentioned this last week, and even to Will's point, it's the usual suspects with Sequoyah, and we talk about them week in and week out. And we don't want to bypass the guys like Colby Martin, Alex Brewer, Brody Craig, Will Rzecki. But one player that stood out to me on your defense, who probably may not get a whole lot of praise, but I thought he was impressive, was Noah Normile, defensive tackle. Not necessarily, I wouldn't say like your prototypical Division I tackle, but does he eat up a lot of space? And he's pretty active along the defensive line. That's not a name we saw coming into this preseason. Coach, what's been so special about Noah so far this season?
No, it's just consistent. I talked to somebody last night. The same question kind of came up. If you seen Noah walking around school, you wouldn't look at him and say, "Man, that's a football player." But just when he gets out there and on the defense, he's a different person. We've struggled last year when he was a scout player against us, our starting line, just trying to block him. He's very strong. He's got strong legs. He's very quick for his size. But he's got a different demeanor. He got a sack the other night and then helped the quarterback up and patted him on the back. So he's a little different. But, yeah, he plays hard. I mean, he just goes full bore the entire game.
And Coach, to wrap it up here with you, got Kell coming up this week. We kind of talked about that at the top, just about how good of a program they've become, especially over the last couple of years. This game between you and Kell, since you've scheduled it, has been one of the best games that we've seen, and there's a lot of pregame fodder to it. What's it going to take for you guys to be successful against the Longhorns as you host them this week in Hickory Flat?
We've got to find a way to eat up time. We got to find a way to keep their offense off the field because they just have weapons everywhere, which won't be easy on our part because defensively they got some players too. But we have to find a way offensively to help Brent out and keep them off the field as much as we can. And again, we don't want to score too fast, but again, we've got to be able to stay with them and keep up with them. But they're just really, really well coached and just seem to have players everywhere you look.
Well, Coach, you certainly do have your hands full, like, as you mentioned, players everywhere you look. And I almost feel like they kind of mirror you guys on the offense side of the ball with a very impressive running back, a quarterback who can throw it and run it, a couple of great receivers, especially for you guys with Maddox Waller and then Jackson Ripley to complement Brooks Darling. So I think this is probably one of the, don't give Brent too hard of a time if the score to this game is like 56-51. I mean, I just think it's two great offenses running up against each other. And, that's just me lobbying for my buddy over there. But in any event, we hope it's a fantastic the weather seems like it's going to be fantastic. It'll be a great night to be back at Skip Pope. And we just wish you the best of luck and certainly cheering on the Chiefs for another victory and for you to inch closer to 100 wins here in Cherokee County. And then if numbers are right, 199 is on the line this week for you as a coach all time.
I appreciate everything, guys. I really do. And it should be a great evening for a ball game.
So again, thank you to Coach Teter for being with us here on the North Georgia Sports Report podcast. And I will go first now, if you'd like me to.
All right.
I feel comfortable.
You got some facts now, right?
Yeah, at least a little background on what they want to do with it. Kell 2-0 won in the Corky Kell 44-21 over South Paulding, and then last week pitched a shutout against Alpharetta 37-0 there. I'm kind of excited by the fact that he said, that we're going to try and run, some clock. Like, are we going to get some old wing T out here? Look out, man. I don't know, but yeah, I'm super excited for this matchup. I think both Sequoyah and Kell are very hard to pick against. You got, a top 10 team in 5A. Any poll that doesn't have Sequoyah in their top 10 at this point, you do have to question. And then kind of same thing with Kell. Any poll that doesn't have Kell in their top 10 in 4A, you would have to ask equal questions. So we got a heck of a ball game on our hands. I assume when the whether your publication at the Turd Ferguson Report or, GHSF Daily comes out, this will be one of the top 8 games in the state this week. And I think the billing lives up to it. It's just so hard to pick against either of these teams. It really is. I'm going to give the advantage to Sequoyah. It's at Skip Pope Stadium. I expect that environment will be super helpful to them. The conditions should be good. I think that probably lends a little bit towards Kell. That's going to be more of a ball, distributing kind of across the board instead of Sequoyah. That sounds like they might go more ground and pound, try and work the clock a little bit more. But I'm going to give Sequoyah the advantage. We'll give the home field points. I'm going to give them 3. I think it's just about as close as you can get to a deadlock, but I do like the Chiefs to come out with a win here. They did it last year. I feel like Sequoyah's improved. Kell's probably improved a little bit as well. They've certainly brought in some transfers that have helped, but I feel like Sequoyah will come out in this one, so I'll give it 3. And if you want to score, I'm going to say it's going to be higher scoring than probably what Coach Teter wants. I'm going to go 31-28.
All right, 31-28. Coop, definitely one of the best games in North Central Georgia, maybe one of the best games in the state. And I agree. This will be on our 8 greats across the state. We previewed this game, and I have no doubt that Georgia High School Football Daily, this will be in their top 10 as well. This is just 2 teams that, in my opinion, are very similar. You've got outstanding quarterbacks. Both of them are also outstanding, not only football players, but also baseball players. You got, Kmart at Sequoyah, and then, Caleb Narcisse, the quarterback for Kell. So many weapons. Again, we're just looking at matchups. Will Rzecki for Sequoyah, and then you've got Quintarius, and they'll probably, you'll probably hear Mooney Gibson at running back, but 5'10", 200 pounds, and Mooney is just a junior. In week 1, he rushed for 194 yards, and 3 total touchdowns. And Caleb Narcisse completing 67% of his passes, 307 yards, 6 touchdowns. Coop, and again, I mentioned the dual threat. He's also rushed for 70 yards this season. Plethora of wide receivers for the Kell Longhorns. I think it starts and ends with a linebacker commit, Braden Rouse, for the Kell Longhorns. He's committed to play at Tennessee up in Knoxville. Then you mentioned transfers. Nathan Adjemang moves over from Creekview over to Kell at tight end. Dante Grant, Brock Burris, Kamani Adams, just a lot of active wide receivers. And I think this game is going to be up and down. Defensively, can Sequoyah, I don't want to say out scheme because that sounds so like they're not good enough, but I do think it's a matter of scheme. Will Kell be disciplined enough to match Sequoyah's scheme? I think Kell's going to be a little bit more, but drop back. I think Mooney's going to get his yards. I think Will Rzecki's going to get his yards. I think it's going to be a back and forth ball game. It might be one of these ball games where the Chiefs fall behind, but they come back and take a lead. But Coop, I tell you what, all my arrows and indications point to the fact that there's a little more talent on that Kell sideline this week. And living so close to Hickory Flat, I know I'm going to hear about it with this pick, but I'm going with my gut and not with my emotions and my heart here. And the math and the analysis tells me that it's Kell. They squeak by Sequoyah, Longhorns by 4, and I like your pick. I think this is a high scoring ball game. I could see 41-37, maybe 44-40, something like that. I just think these are 2 offenses that are going to score points regardless of how good the opposing defense is.
Agreed. I don't agree with the side that you're picking, but I mean, again, it's that competitive of a game, like I would be kind of concerned if we did agree on this one. So I'm not going to tell you you're wrong because I certainly don't know. But yeah, I feel like this is going to be well within a margin of a touchdown. I would be shocked if anybody gets a double-digit win in this one, regardless of side. I would be equally as shocked on both. But again, it sets Sequoyah up for playing teams like Sprayberry, for playing teams, like you go into a playoff forward, but Gainesville, Woodward Academy,
sure.
That's kind of what they're trying to do here by playing. They played 2 6A schools. And here they go playing a lower classification, but a top 10 team in a lower classification. So I like their game plan. I do. I'm excited, man. I really hope we see the wing T break out just for a play, man. Like who would have thought we'd be asking for this? For me, it's just sentimental. I think, getting back to some roots, but I don't think they will. I think it'll be a standard gun operation. I think that when they talk about, time of possession, it means that you complete high percentage throws, tight end, out of the backfield, and then again, it's the most infuriating thing or it's the most enjoyable thing. Depends who you're rooting for. But watching Colby Martin take a little jog over to Coach Teter to have a little talk that takes 20 seconds, and then he jogs back out there. It's like, this is so frustrating for a defense to have to stand there and wait for that. I love it. I think it's great, and I do think it favors Sequoyah. And again, home field advantage. If they were playing this neutral site, man, I don't know which way I'd go. I know high school football doesn't have the same bump that home field advantage does for college and pro, but I do like it. So yeah, Sequoyah by 3, Kell by 4 for you. We will. You want to put a Travis Scott meal on this?
Man, we got to go with another meal because Travis Scott meal's not coming back, Coop. And at this point, I'm indebted to you for like 17 or 18 Travis Scott meals. So
it's only 8.
You want to go double or nothing? Make it 16.
And just some background on this. Art and I started when we weren't fully working together. We were doing our own thing, but we were friends, and we would do wagers. And it started with River Ridge in 2019 when they started to turn things around.
Yeah,
versus Chattahoochee. And actually it was 2020 because it was 35-0 or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, essentially it started from there. And since then I have not lost one of these wagers. I am 8-0. So he does owe me 8 Travis Scott meals, but like you said, they did away with it in like 2020 or 2019. So it's never coming back. But I still like to call it that. But it's up to you, man. If you want to put one on there here in front of everybody.
Yeah, let's go double or nothing, man. I'm going with Kell. You're going with
no.
Is that how that works?
No, double or nothing. No, I didn't say that. I'm trying to wipe the 8 out, man. I've worked for 5 years to build up this repertoire that I have. I'm not about to give it away, and I have to pick my spots, man. I'm flawless in these. 8-0. I shouldn't even be doing this, but I'm throwing you a bone, man, to get one back here.
You name your wager, Coop. Just one game. Put a little Travis Scott meal on it. I'm in.
Yep.
I'm in.
All right. There you go. So there's your fodder for the week. So, yeah, justice for Will is really what we need because he made a bet that he can't ever pay off. Forever indebted.
I need to work my way out of debt here. Coop was talking about being indebted. I don't know if that's a great segue or not, but I think we're indebted to the people to go over our power rankings. And I think we have some dissension again. We talked about this, we did not get Dave Garner. He was way too busy for us this weekend, being the voice of 101.1 The Pulse. He is big timing us on podcast night. So we did not get did not get a commitment for him to come on our show this week, but we're working on it. And we hope to get Dave just to one, talk a little Cherokee, give us his power rankings, but 2, kind of let us know what he's seen so far this season as the voice of 101.1 The Pulse each Friday night. This week, the Pulse will be at Sequoyah High School for that big matchup between Sequoyah and Kell. But Coop, we will talk about our top 10. And I think I went first and actually listened to the podcast. I think I skipped you a couple of times. So I'm going to keep track, and I'm going to defer to you to start out our poll this week.
You want to go from start at 6, right?
Yeah, we go bottom up. Yeah.
6, I got Cherokee. They're one of my flips for this week. It's basically Cherokee and Creekview. I think basically it's just who has a better defense. And I think Creekview does. So I put Cherokee at 6.
All right. No dissension there. I think I had Cherokee at 6 the week prior, and they will stay there this week. Just want to see a bounce back from them, but they're number 6. And then Coop, for me, at number 5 is Creekview. I think those two kind of hold steady. I thought Creekview, as you mentioned, their defense was solid. They're going to have to find a way to get into the end zone. I believe they will. But as we stand today, I've got them at number 5 in my rankings.
Yeah, same. Defense separates it. Hammer the under on Creekview. But yeah, it's hoping, I'd feel so much better if they could get in the end zone this week. I think they will. But I'll feel much better about them then. But yeah, they're at 5 for sure.
All right, Coop, you're up at number 4.
Yeah, number 4, Etowah, still at 4. You want me to reward you for losing to Sprayberry?
It's not a county team, so you just use whatever logic you need.
If they played on Friday, who would you pick? This is the question that I come back to every single time. Etowah, I would pick against Cherokee and Creekview. I would not pick them above the 3 that are above them. That's how I feel. That's where I'm at.
Okay. I've got River Ridge at number 4. Might shock some people, and obviously it shocks Coop.
That is shocking.
You know, the loss by Etowah does not surprise me. I thought River Ridge's win was impressive. I like what they did against Denmark. We'll see how I feel about them next week. But this week, I've got the Knights at number 4, Coop.
Did you have River Ridge at 4 last week?
I'm pretty sure I did.
Okay. All right, I'll let it slide.
Maybe I didn't. Maybe I did drop them down.
I thought you had Woodstock at number 4.
You know, Coop, when you get to be my age, you have to write things down. I didn't write it down. I didn't go back. And so this week, and again, my top 10 my power rankings, ratings, whatever you want to call them, changes. So I've got River Ridge at number 4. You know, just for them to have something to talk about and bellyache and bicker about, Coop. I just need the Knights, you know. This is a team that probably feels like I think they're the stepchild of Cherokee County football. But yeah, River Ridge number 4. And
I love you, River Ridge.
Here we go. And at number, is it my turn or
I don't know. Go ahead.
Okay.
We've already lost track.
Yeah. I've got Woodstock at number 3, Coop.
Hey, look, we agree. Woodstock at 3 for me, too. They didn't move at all in my poll. There's no reason for them to move. You beat who you're supposed to beat. Congratulations. Wasn't as impressive as I thought it might have been, but that's okay.
All right. Fair enough. Coop, who do you have at number 2?
Yeah, that's the River Ridge Knights, baby. I mean, 2-0. We're talking about the 2 unbeatens in Cherokee County. I don't know what we're doing here. The 2 unbeatens deserve to be the top 2. You didn't lose, so what do you want me to do with that? So River Ridge is number 2. They obviously didn't beat anybody by 60 points, so they can't be number 1. But they're number 2, and they're a solid number 2.
Okay, fair
Explain.
enough. Explain?
Yeah, what?
Etowah, the Etowah Eagles beat my previous number 2 team in week 1. They jumped everybody to number 2. I was impressed by how they played. I realized they didn't get a win. They also lost to an out-of-county team, so I have a handicap for them on that. I think they played probably the toughest team any county team played last week, you know, outside of Cherokee facing Sequoyah. I thought they competed. I think this is a young and upcoming team. And again, if I look at the facts and the stats, and if you are telling me if Etowah and Woodstock lined up again, I would be hard pressed to pick against Etowah, and that's why I have them number 2.
So just to reiterate, Etowah loses a game
to a non-county team. This is a Cherokee County power ranking, not a record power ranking.
River Ridge beats 2 teams in the top classification. And your answer to that is to put them below Woodstock, who lost to a county team.
Coop, River Ridge is 2-0 against teams who have a combined record of 0-4.
That is such a cherry picking. That is such a cherry picking stat because
am I lying?
Denmark and Cherokee have both only played county teams. There's no progression. Until you get more information, but by your logic, Woodstock lost to a county team. How can you penalize River Ridge? River Ridge beat a county team
against they're a combined 0-4. That's all.
River Ridge beat a county team. Woodstock has not. I don't agree with your logic anyway, but by your own logic, this poll doesn't make sense.
I'm not going to make this a generational war here.
Number 1, I have Sequoyah.
Yeah, likewise. I think that's one thing we can all agree on. Administering a crushing defeat to the Cherokee Warriors. Sequoyah stays at number 1. And again, Coop, I'll go as far as to say Sequoyah will probably still be my number one next week, regardless win, lose, or draw after this game against Kell. Just have been a dominating team throughout last season, the season before, and then carrying over. And I know we don't want to put a lot of stock into what has historically happened, but I just think the run that they're on right now, we just can't not talk about how they got here. And again, they'll be number one at least until region play opens up here in a couple weeks.
I agree. I don't think Sequoyah can drop from what we've seen. Again, unless something, I guess for me, since I have River Ridge at 2, if River Ridge beat Allatoona by 60 and Sequoyah lost by 60, maybe. But obviously that's not something we anticipate. So I don't really see how Sequoyah moves out of that spot, at least until they get into the region schedule for sure. So I agree with you on that for sure. So we have agreement, the bottom 2 teams and the top team. It's just those pesky 3 in the middle.
Fair enough. Coop, I'm going to throw you a curveball here. Want to know, week 2, was there anything that maybe stood out to you outside of Cherokee County? Were you able to kind of something that caught your eye? Was there something in Texas that you want to share with the fine folks here in North Central Georgia?
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, shout out to my fellas up there in LJ. Gilmer looking good right now. Pickens also looking good. What is going on up there on 515?
They see each other
Man,
this week. Oop.
It should be a dandy up there because both those teams are looking really good right now. Love that North Georgia rivalry. 515. That's a classic. Matchup between 2 mountain schools. It's awesome to see. And again, I have a soft spot for Gilmer. My family is from Gilmer County. My grandparents graduated from Gilmer County. My other grandparents graduated from Cass. So I'm very local. But I do have a soft spot for the Bobcats. They've always been really good to me. Super excited for Gilmer, super excited for Pickens as well. That was super good. As far as things go in Texas, we kick off this week. So for me, I have actually started my own little project. It's called Friday Night Lights on Preston. It would be like if we did something for East Cherokee Drive specific. So we'll be covering 3 teams, which will be Prosper, who is a 6A team. We've got Gunner, who has won the state title in 3A the last 3 years running up. Kind of think about it like Gilmer. They're very similar to that demographic. It's a small town, much smaller than LJ, but a small school, but a lot of talent. And then Salina is probably the one. That's where we actually are, is in Salina right now. And that's probably the one that most people hear about. They've won 11 state titles. I better figure that out before I actually start talking about it. But the super successful program. Their quarterback is Bo Bentley, who has been committed to Oklahoma since the summer. 4-star quarterback, very reminiscent of AJ Swan, a mobile quarterback who's also able to throw the ball 70, 80 yards if he wants to. So I'm excited to see those teams. We will start this Friday. Prosper is taking on Westlake, who is ranked 26th nationally. So it's going to be a tough test for the Eagles. We went to Van Alstyne up in far north Texas to watch Gunner play a scrimmage. Gunner looked really good. They actually had their coach retire and their offensive coordinator is taking over. They run an offense that's very similar to what Sequoyah runs. They call it the pistol option. So it's somewhat similar to what Sequoyah runs, but they should be very exciting. And then, Salina and Gunner are both headed to South Texas down in Houston. It would be a 4-hour drive, so we're not doing that. We are going to stay here in town, so Prosper will be hosting that. So if you're interested in following along with that, the link to that is in my Twitter account. So you can just hop on over there. The @'s there. It's going to be a little bit more impersonal, or more personal, I should say. You'll get more of me kind of behind the scenes, see what it's like for me to be a fan. And then I will do a short form podcast for that as well. But if you have any interest in it, come check it out. It should be fun. At least gets a different look and kind of see some stadiums that people talk about. Because I've got my schedule planned out where I'm planning to hit some of these 10,000 plus capacity stadiums. So that's my weekend review and kind of what I'm looking forward to. Art, anything for you, buddy?
Coop, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the podcast, I will be over at Creekview on Friday night, filling in for Mr. Brian Mello, the fabulous PA announcer. I think one of the best in the business. So
For sure.
big shoes to fill over there, but I'm excited to be back in the Grizzly Den. It's been a long time since I've been over. It seems like it's been over a year now, but I'm looking forward to getting back over there. Coop, I want to just to go back to that Pickens-Gilmer game. This is a long-standing rivalry. You know better than this. Last year, Gilmer won and kind of a heartbreaker for Pickens, 35-34. A year ago, you mentioned these teams are 2-0. I believe this is the 66th this will be the 66th meeting. Gilmer leads 37-28-1. Our friends Tucker Green and Jess Walker will be broadcasting this on WPGY, the sports pig over there for those guys. And man, it's great to see some local teams really getting out there and having success. Excited about your project. How do you have time to eat, sleep, or work otherwise, man? I mean, what gives you? Yeah, I mean, you're a pitch man, you're a podcaster, you work,
man.
You've got it all going on, Coop.
I don't appreciate the dig there. People aren't going to get that, but I don't appreciate it at all. No, I'm kidding. No, look, I mean, if people have hobbies, mine just happens to be this, and I happen to not sleep very much. Thanks, Mom and Dad. It's genetic, I swear. But I basically, instead of, doing what normal people do, I just get into high school football, and I love it. And, moving here, I knew that we were going to be in an area that had some really good football opportunities, and just wanted to be a part of it and kind of, honestly, for myself, kind of compare, because when I do come back home to Georgia, I kind of want to be able to say, like, hey, how do we stack up with some of these, a top again, 3A state title, 4A state title, 6A top level teams. Like, what do we see on Friday nights compared to Texas? Because so many people make that comparison, between Georgia high school football, Texas high school football, California high school football, and then Florida high school football, kind of the big four. From what I've seen so far, I would say it's pretty comparable. To be honest, I mean, I would say if you put Sequoyah on the field against Salina, you would have a heck of a ball game. So we'll see. I'll let you know as I go along. Again, stay tuned to the project. It's going to be informal. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to see a lot of the local stuff and kind of get perspective on what it's like to be a fan and still get the same level of coverage that hopefully everybody's used to from us. Just with it. So, but I'll keep you updated here on the podcast. Give you a little 2-minute segment while I'm at it too, in case anybody wants to know.
We will definitely have to check in with our at FNL on Preston. Again,
you got it.
That's a handle on X or Twitter. If you're old like me, you can still call it Twitter. But
who's the pitch man now?
Yeah. Well, look, I'm trying to just shout out my boy, man. I'm not getting paid for this.
I appreciate
so this is a freebie. At FNL on Preston. That's Will Cooper's other project. So guys, make sure you check that out. Will always coming with some of the best material, and I tell you, I won't give away your age, Will, but he's wise beyond his years, and he's one of the hardest working men in the business. So I'm looking forward to following it at FNL on Preston to kind of get my taste of this rumor of this legend I hear about Texas high school football. But one thing we can agree on, Coop, and we can talk about this, we talk about per capita, Georgia's got, the best football players, the most blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell you what, I don't think there's any state in the union that has better high school football stadiums, as a whole in terms of the seating capacity than what we've seen. And we've seen some great ones in Georgia, Buford, Lowndes, Valdosta. Yeah. I think, the Granite Bowl in Elberton is a very unique stadium. But I just don't think, in terms of the amount of people that show up, maybe doubling what we typically do on a Friday night is very impressive. So maybe the football is not as good, but the stadiums are more impressive. I don't know, but you're going to let us in on that, and we will have a first, a front row seat to your coverage, and we look forward to it.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. Excited to have anybody that wants to be on board. And we'll definitely be doing some stadium reviews, because I think I've got 5 stadiums that will hold over 10,000 people on the schedule. So awesome. We'll make sure to highlight that.
Awesome. Well, Coop, man, I tell you what, it's dinner time for me. It's been a long day. So grateful for Coach Collins. So grateful for Coach Teter for joining us. So grateful for all the fans that listen, the players who use this as extra motivation. If this is some bulletin board material, we appreciate it. We hope everyone has a safe and successful Friday night. All 6 county teams are in action. We're hoping for Cherokee County to go 6-0. Coop, as Region 6-5A moves into region play next week. We'll have some region matchups to talk about. Really excited about that. And again, thanks everyone for joining us. We hope you have a fantastic Labor Day weekend. Be safe, everybody.